I learned very early that love inside a home could be conditional. My childhood house looked perfect from the outside. A white fence, trimmed lawn, family photos on the wall, but inside, it was a quiet battlefield I never chose to enter. My father died when I was 9. Within a year, she arrived. Not a mother, never that. She was the woman who replaced him, sharp smiles, colder eyes, and a voice that could turn sweet or cruel, depending on who was watching. At first, she pretended to care. She packed my lunches.com. She attended school events. She smiled in front of neighbors and church friends, but behind closed doors, the mask fell. Her words were subtle at first. "You're too sensitive. You should be grateful. Don't embarrass me." Then came the isolation. My room was moved to the basement. My allowance disappeared. My maid was magnified, every success ignored. When her own son was born, I became invisible. By the time I was 16, I understood the rules. Stay quiet, don't ask, don't dream, because dreaming made her angry. She convinced my relatives I was difficult. Teachers believed I was lazy. When I tried to explain, my words always came out wrong. She had already written my story for everyone else. The troubled kid, the ungrateful boy. The problem? At 18, she did the final thing. She sold the house, my father's house, without telling me. She transferred the remaining savings into accounts I couldn't access. The day I confronted her, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She smiled. "You would have wasted it anyway." That was the day something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a light switching off. I left with one bag, no family, no money, no future. For years, I struggled. I worked low-paying jobs. I slept in shared apartments. I watched people my age move forward while I stayed stuck, carrying anger I didn't know how to release. And then, life ended. I thought that was it. But when I opened my eyes again, I was 9 years old. The same room, the same walls, the same woman laughing upstairs. But this time, I remembered everything. Every insult, every theft, every lie. My hands were smaller, my voice weaker, but my mind fully awake. As I sat up in bed, heart pounding, I realized something terrifying and powerful at the same time. She thought she had already won. She had no idea. I had been reborn to take everything back. And this time, I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't explain. I wouldn't forgive. I would wait.
Chapter 2. The Woman Who Ruined My Name. I learned very early that silence could hurt more than screams. After my rebirth, the first thing I noticed wasn't the room, or my younger hands, or the calendar screaming I was 20 years in the past. It was her voice. Soft, fake caring. The same voice that once convinced my father I was a disappointment. The same woman who would later take everything from me. Linda, my stepmother. In my previous life, I had trusted her. Worse, I had tried to earn her approval. I believed that if I behaved, studied harder, spoke less, she might finally see me as her own. Instead, she turned me into a villain in my own home. Now reborn at 17, I saw her clearly for the first time. She didn't hate me loudly. She destroyed me politely. At breakfast, she smiled while placing the plate in front of me. "Eat more," she said gently. "You look tired. Maybe because you stayed up gaming again?" My father frowned immediately. I hadn't touched a game in months, but I remembered this moment. This was how it always started. Small lies, casual comments, seeds. By the time I was 25, my father would believe I was lazy, irresponsible, incapable of handling money or leadership. By 30, he would sign the company shares over to Linda's biological son, Daniel. In my past life, I never fought back. This time I stayed quiet but not weak. After school, I locked myself in my room and opened my laptop. I remembered everything now. Every deal, every betrayal, every document she forged, every conversation she twisted, and most importantly, the year she framed me for stealing company funds. That lie would send me overseas, disowned, broke, and alone. I wasn't going to stop her directly. Not yet. I needed power. So I did something my younger self never had the courage to do. I applied for an internship, not at my father's company, but at its biggest rival. At 18, I shouldn't have been accepted. But I knew their future CEO. I knew his weaknesses, and I knew the project that would fail unless someone intervened. So I sent one email, one paragraph, one solution. 3 days later, my phone rang. "We want to meet you," the voice said. That night, Linda knocked on my door. "I heard you're applying for jobs," she said sweetly. "You should focus on school. Your father worries you're ambitious beyond your abilities." I looked at her, and for the first time I smiled. "I know," I replied calmly. "That's why I'll succeed." Her smile cracked just for a second. She sensed it. The version of me she could control was gone. At dinner, my father announced Daniel would join the company during summer break. Applause. Pride. I clapped too, because I knew something no one else did. In 7 years, Daniel would lose everything, and Linda would kneel in a courtroom, begging me not to testify. But first, I had to let her believe she was winning. Because revenge tastes best when served after patience. Chapter 3. The First Move. The first rule of revenge is patience. The second is silence. In my previous life, I had rushed, trying to prove myself to people who never wanted me to succeed. This time I moved like a shadow, quiet, observant, precise. 3 months had passed since my rebirth. I was no longer the helpless kid she controlled. I was 20 years old again, but with the mind of a man who had already lived and died once. And I remembered everything, every stolen dollar, every lie she told my father, every night I went hungry while she smiled in front of guests. Her name was Marianne, the woman who married my father, destroyed my childhood, and later took everything when he died. In my last life, she sold the house, emptied the accounts, left me with nothing but a suitcase and shame. This time I would take something from her first. I enrolled at the same community college she had once mocked. "You're not smart enough," she had said back then. "College is a waste on you." That memory fueled me as I sat in the front row, listening carefully, asking questions, building relationships. Professors noticed. Students respected me. More importantly, I gained access. One of my classmates, Ethan Collins, was the son of a small real estate investor. In my previous life, Ethan's father had partnered with Marianne, only to be cheated and blamed when the deal collapsed. This time, I sat next to Ethan on purpose. "You're good with numbers," he said one day, impressed by my notes. I smiled casually. "Just focused." Within weeks, I was having coffee with his father. I didn't accuse. I didn't warn. I only asked innocent questions. "Who handles the paperwork? Do you double-check signatures? Have you ever had a partner move money without notice?" The seed was planted. Meanwhile, at home, Marianne grew suspicious. "You've been quiet lately," she said over dinner, watching me too closely. "What are you hiding?" In my past life, I would have panicked. This time, I met her gaze calmly. "Nothing. Just school." Her eyes narrowed, but she smiled. The same fake smile I remembered. She didn't know yet, but the balance had already shifted. Late one night, I accessed my father's old email account. In my last life, I never thought to check it. This time, I knew exactly what I was looking for, and there it was. Emails, bank transfers, documents altered after his death. Proof. Not enough to destroy her yet, but enough to protect myself. I backed everything up. 3 locations, 2 cloud accounts, 1 hidden drive. If she tried anything, I was ready. The real moment came during a charity fundraiser. Marianne loved these events, loved the attention, loved pretending she was generous. She stood on stage smiling, telling everyone how hard it was to raise a troubled boy after my father passed. Laughter followed. Sympathy. In my previous life, I stood in the back, humiliated. This time I walked out early, and I made a call. 2 weeks later, her partner confronted her. The deal collapsed. Not publicly, not dramatically, quietly. And that scared her more than humiliation ever could. She came home furious. "You told someone something," she shouted. I looked up from my book slowly. "Why would I do that?" Her face froze. For the first time, she looked at me not as a burden, but as a threat. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something new. Not anger. Control. This was only the beginning. I wasn't going to destroy her quickly. I was going to make her watch. As everything she built slipped through her fingers, just like my childhood had.
Chapter 4-1 learned how power is really built. By the time I turned 30, I finally understood something I was never taught as a child. Talent doesn't protect you. Kindness doesn't save you. Hard work alone doesn't make people respect you. Power does, and power isn't loud. It's quiet, strategic, and patient. After rebirth, I stopped chasing approval. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped hoping people would finally see my worth. Instead, I watched. I listened. I learned how the world actually works behind closed doors. I learned how contracts are written to trap the weak, how smiles hide greed, how trust is currency and betrayal is business. In my previous life, I was destroyed because I trusted the wrong woman and underestimated the right enemies. This time, I trusted no one blindly. I joined a small investment firm not as a dreamer, but as a student of human weakness. I noticed who lied under pressure, who panicked when money was involved, who sold their morals for promotions, and quietly, I began winning. I didn't show off. I didn't brag. I didn't even correct people when they underestimated me. Let them, because while they laughed, I memorized numbers. While they partied, I studied markets. While they betrayed others, I learned how betrayal leaves fingerprints. Then came the first turning point. A risky deal everyone avoided except me. I saw what others didn't. Fear disguised as caution. I invested everything. And when the deal exploded into success, my name started appearing in places it never had before. Not headlines, not interviews, emails, phone calls, closed-door meetings. That's when I heard her name again. The woman who destroyed my childhood. The woman who took everything from me in my first life. She was involved in a failing project, desperate, cornered. And for the first time, she didn't control the board. I did. I didn't smile. I didn't rush. Revenge isn't loud. Revenge waits.
Chapter 5. The Power Shift. By the time I turned 35, the world finally knew my name. Not because I begged for attention. Not because I chased validation. But because success has a way of announcing itself without permission. The same people who once ignored me now whispered my name in rooms I had never been allowed to enter before. Boardrooms, private clubs, elite events. And she was hearing those whispers too. The woman who destroyed my childhood. The woman who took everything and walked away without looking back. I hadn't seen her in years. Not in person, but I saw her name. She was working at one of my subsidiary companies. One I had quietly acquired 6 months earlier. She didn't know it was mine. Most employees didn't. I preferred it that way. Power works best when it's silent. One evening, I stood behind the glass wall of my office, overlooking the city lights. My assistant walked in carefully. "Sir," she said, hesitant, "there's a woman downstairs asking to see you. She says—" "She knows you." I already knew who it was. "Send her up," I replied calmly. Minutes later, the door opened. She walked in slower than I remembered. Her confidence gone, her posture uncertain. Her eyes tired. For a moment, she didn't recognize me. Then she did. Her breath caught in her throat. "You?" she whispered. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I simply looked at her like a stranger. "Yes," I said. "Do we know each other?" That question hurt her more than anger ever could. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "It's me. You remember?" "You have to." I leaned back in my chair. "I remember a lot of things," I said. "But I don't remember inviting you into my life." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know," she said. "I didn't know you would become this." I finally looked directly at her. "And I didn't know you would take everything from a child and call it necessary," I replied quietly. Silence, heavy, crushing. She tried to explain. People always do when the power shifts. But I didn't interrupt. I let her speak because this wasn't about revenge through words. It was about truth. When she finished, I stood. "You didn't ruin my life," I said. "You taught me how cruel the world can be, and because of that lesson, I own this world now." Her knees almost gave out. Security escorted her out, not aggressively, just professionally. As the elevator doors closed, I felt nothing. No anger, no joy, only peace. Because the child she broke was gone. And the man she created was unstoppable. Chapter 6. When power finally shifted. By the time I turned 35 again, this time with a second life's memory, I was no longer the invisible boy she had once crushed. I was the man everyone feared disappointing. The company logo glowing behind the glass tower downtown belonged to me now. Not inherited, not gifted. Built brick by brick through patience, strategy, and pain. The woman who destroyed my childhood, Evelyn, stood outside those same glass doors one rainy afternoon, clutching a worn leather bag like it was the last thing keeping her upright. I watched her through the security feed. Once she owned everything. Now she needed permission just to enter my building. Evelyn had been my stepmother in my first life, cold, calculating, smiling in public while draining every ounce of warmth from our home. She manipulated my father, stole my inheritance, and framed me as a useless burden. When my father died, she threw me out with nothing but a suitcase and a warning. You were never meant to matter. In my first life, I believed her. In this life, I buried her words under success. I instructed my assistant calmly. Let her wait. An hour passed, then 2. By the time I finally agreed to see her, the confident woman I once feared was gone. Her hair was streaked with gray. Her makeup couldn't hide exhaustion. Her eyes, those sharp, judging eyes, were hollow. She stood when I entered the room, clearly not recognizing me at first. Then realization struck. Her face drained of color. You, she whispered. It's you? I took my seat slowly, folding my hands, my voice calm and controlled. Yes, I said. The child you erased. Her lips trembled. I didn't know it would turn out like this. That sentence almost made me laugh. She didn't come to apologize. She came because she was desperate. Her empire had collapsed. Bad investments, lawsuits, betrayal from the same people she once used to crush others. Karma didn't rush, but it never forgot. She tried to speak, excuses, justifications. Stories rewritten to paint herself as misunderstood. I let her talk. Because power is not interrupting. When she finished, I leaned forward slightly. Do you remember? I asked. The night you locked me out in the snow because I asked where my mother's ring was? Her eyes widened. I was 10, I continued. I nearly froze. You said it would teach me humility. She dropped her gaze. I learned it, I said. But not the way you expected. Silence filled the room. Then I delivered the truth she came to hear. I won't save you, I said. I won't destroy you either. You already did that yourself. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Please, she whispered. I'm still family. I stood. No, I replied softly. Family doesn't steal childhoods. I turned away without another word. As the doors closed behind me, I felt no joy, no triumph, only peace. For the first time in both lives, her shadow no longer followed me.
Chapter 7. The day regret knocked. I didn't plan revenge the way movies show it. No grand speeches. No dramatic confrontations in the rain. By the time I stood at the top of the glass tower that carried my name, the past had already lost its grip on me. From the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, the city stretched endlessly, alive, loud, unforgiving. Once, this same city had swallowed me whole. Now it bowed beneath my feet. The assistant knocked softly. She's here, he said, hesitating. She insists on seeing you. I already knew who she was. I took a breath, not because I was nervous, but because it felt like closing the final chapter of a book I'd carried for 2 lifetimes. Send her in. The door opened. She walked in slowly, as if the weight of every step was heavy. Her hair was dull now, her confidence cracked. The woman who once destroyed my childhood, who took everything from me and laughed while doing it. She looked small. Her eyes landed on me. For a second, she froze. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. I didn't greet her. I simply looked at her, like a stranger. Why you? Her voice trembled. It really is you. Yes, I said calmly. What do you want? That question broke her. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Not the theatrical kind she used when manipulating people, but messy, desperate ones. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know you'd become this." I leaned back in my chair. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I replied. "You just didn't think I'd survive it." Silence stretched between us. She started talking about regret, about mistakes, about how life punished her, about how she lost everything. She spoke of sleepless nights and guilt, of how karma finally found her. I listened, not because I needed closure, but because this was the sound of her losing power. When she finished, she looked at me with hope. "I just want forgiveness," she said. "That's all." "Forgiveness," I said, looking at the city, "is for people who admit wrong before they lose everything." I turned to face her. "You didn't destroy me," I continued. "You trained me." Her face collapsed. "I don't hate you," I said honestly. "Hate means you still matter." That was the moment she understood. Not when I became rich, not when I took back everything she stole, but when she realized she no longer existed in my world. The security escorted her out gently. No shouting, no drama, just emptiness. That night, alone in my office, I thought about the boy I once was: broken, ignored, disposable. I whispered to him softly, "You made it." Rebirth didn't give me a second life. It gave me clarity. And as the city lights flickered below, I knew one truth with absolute certainty. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you never could be and never looking back.